Good morning to the members of the media, to our brothers and sisters across Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Welcome to our press conference today, Wednesday, the 29th October 2025. Before I proceed, I want to acknowledge the presence of our distinguished team, our political leader, the Honorable Emmeline Pear, our chairman and former Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, Honorable Dr. Clarice Modest Cohen, and Honorable Kate Lewis Peters. Before we begin, we pause to send love and solidarity to the people of Jamaica. Our Caribbean family is hurting after Hurricane Melissa, and today we stand with you. Because when one island suffers, all of us feel it together. Let's continue to lift up our prayers for our family in Jamaica, and of course, let's help them in every possible way. We've been there before many times, and we know what it feels like. Now to business. We are gathered this morning because Grenada deserves clarity and competence. And yesterday, the nation watched confusion unfold in our parliament, a scene that mirrored the wider disorganization and breakdown within this administration. It wasn't just a bad day in the House. It was a symptom of leadership that has lost its way. With no further delay, I now invite our political leader, the Honorable Emmeline Pear, to address this and other national issues of importance. I hand over now to the political leader.
Thank you very much, Public Relations Officer. And let me use this opportunity to recognize all our viewers and listeners and to greet you good morning, but to also join with the Public Relations Officer to extend our solidarity and our love to the government and people of Jamaica. In this very difficult moment, in this time of pain, we want to encourage them this morning that they will rise again. They will rise again. We are at a point in our country where we are forced, I would say, to have this press conference because it's very painful to even raise the very issues that we are about to raise. Because what we are experiencing, what we are witnessing, can only be described as unprecedented. What we are experiencing is a crisis of leadership in this country that concerns us deeply. If we don't care about Grenada, we will say nothing. But because we care deeply, and we believe that there must be a turnaround of this situation, we come this morning to again register publicly our concern about what we see happening and what we are experiencing. And I want to start specifically with the schedule for Parliament that has been agreed upon by both government and opposition side. According to the schedule for Parliament, there should have been a sitting of the House of Representatives on Tuesday, 16th September and Tuesday, 21st October. None of those dates materialized. In other words, there was no sitting of the House on those days. What is unfortunate and unacceptable also is the fact that we agreed on this schedule, but at no time did the government, from where this schedule originated, at no time did they feel that it was necessary to consult with us as an opposition as it relates to the change in the dates. Mindful, and let me say this, the reason that we establish a schedule of monthly sitting of the House of Representatives and Senate was for the very reason of how the government was managing the schedule. it appears to us that the schedule was being developed around the travel schedule of the Prime Minister and other members of cabinet, and we were totally, absolutely ignored. When this was brought to their attention several times, it was agreed that we would have a standard schedule. And so, one would simply understand that if there's a standard schedule based on what I just said, that if it becomes necessary based on your travel schedule or other reasons, that you would at least engage us in conversation. A very classic example that was open to the eyes of the public was yesterday. When it was decided that there was going to be a change in the date for the next sitting of Parliament, you would notice that the date was decided upon between the leader of government business and the Prime Minister without even glancing towards the side of the opposition team. I rose and I questioned whether or not we were going to be consulted. And the body language is sufficient to tell the story. I don't need to tell the story of how we are ignored in the House of Parliament. This morning, it is extremely unfortunate that I have to detail these instances of total disrespect in the first instance and then move on to show how serious the lack of leadership and governance in this country continues to affect us. After 3 years, going on 4 years now, it appears that this administration, the government side of the Parliament, still don't seem to accept and understand that the people of Grenada elected an opposition. They elected members to Parliament who form the opposition. And so we are equal in Parliament as parliamentary representatives. So I bring your mind back because I want you to understand that this is not just a new development. It started from the very day the Parliament was convened after the last election. You would recall that the booklet that is normally produced for this very historic opening of Parliament after a general election, and I'll use this particular instance, the names of the members of the opposition team was nowhere. And I challenge anyone to search our history. There is nowhere in our history where this would be recorded, where you have a Parliament, opening of Parliament, and members of the House are not listed as part of this historic event. But if you search that document, go back and find it, you would find names there who were not members of Parliament at the time. Brothers and sisters, I draw your attention to the developments that cause us concern. Yesterday in Parliament, you would realize also that I raised the subject of the formation of committees. The Speaker of the House confirmed that it's a necessity, it is a requirement that committees are formed at the first sitting of the Parliament. And if you are listening and following, if you go back, you would recognize that in essence, the Prime Minister overruled this. So in spite of the fact that we had, before every member of Parliament, the list of members to comprise the committees of the Parliament so that the work of the Parliament can get started in earnest, you would recognize after the Prime Minister's statement, we moved on without the formation of those committees. Brothers and sisters, this morning I want to say this, that we feel very strongly that we are seriously disrespected in the House of Parliament, and that this kind of disrespect must end. And it is why we are strongly expressing those views this morning. But I go beyond disrespect to say that this is not just about disrespect that we have experienced over the past 3+ years. Members sucking their teeth when you're speaking and otherwise. But this has gone beyond disrespect to what I consider a serious case of governance of disorientation. And I want to quickly refer specifically to yesterday's sitting in that regard. On October 16th, we received notice for the sitting of Parliament on October 24th, Friday the 24th. On October 22nd, we received supplementary order paper for that sitting. No documents attached. As a matter of fact, that order paper referenced one item, a bill that was going to come to Parliament. On October 22nd, we also received another correspondence from Parliament stating that there was going to be a rescheduling of the sitting from the 24th to the 28th. And note, interestingly, the reason we were given was that there was an issue with the AC, which we still had yesterday. On the 23rd, one day after, we received what was called the corrected amended order paper with 17 items, 5 bills for that sitting on the 28th. No documents accompanied. On the 27th, the day before the sitting, we received an email with a link pointing us to several documents that had nothing to do with the sitting of Parliament. And we were told, navigate your way, you are going to find the documents in there. Brothers and sisters, the details of the communication and the expression of our concern, those will be dealt with by Sister Clarice, our parliamentary representative for St. Mark's. But let me just draw a serious correlation. This national dysfunctioning operation that we see, this system that appears to be unraveling before our eyes, has nothing to do with the Parliament of Grenada in our minds. What happened in Parliament yesterday and what has been happening over the months and almost 4 years, going on to 4 years now, is a reflection of what is happening throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique as it relates to leadership and governance. You see this reflected in the way that the Royal Grenada Police Force is managed. You see this reflected in infrastructure. Roads all over the place, poorly managed. Contractors cannot receive payments. People receiving designs that are inaccurate, having to break things that were already completed. Total disorganization, dysfunctioning. It is not just about the Parliament. You see this in finance. Payments. Some cases, one contractor, more than a year, cannot receive payment. Administrative hiccups, other hiccups that it's just a total chaos in our mind happening, and we believe the root of the problem is lack of leadership. In healthcare, you see it. In some cases, gloves, basic items as gloves not available, but you see spending, wastage happening, $20,000 spent monthly for rental of a residence for the Prime Minister. Basic medication cannot be available. That's a mismanagement issue. That's a leadership issue. That's a functional issue. And we are extremely concerned about this level of mismanagement. You see it in education. I mean, we can go into every aspect of management in this country, whether it has to do with diplomacy, whether it has to do with signing of the Samoa Agreement. You can go from day one to this current day, and you can just see the pattern of mismanagement, disorganization, and what appears to be just a blatant disregard for citizens of this country, for institutions, and for stakeholders. So lack of consultation. You bring in a bill as serious as reducing the age for civil legal responsibility, absolutely no consultation with not even a single stakeholder. And again, I'm saying these are just simple, unique examples. There are so many that one can refer to. So I say this morning, the interference, the involvement of the executive in institutions that are supposed to be independent, when a minister of government can say he has access to documents in the Integrity Commission. We say this morning, this is not about Parliament. This is a leadership crisis in this country. This is a mismanagement crisis that we face in this country. And we are calling on all those concerned. We are calling on all those who care about Grenada, those who should be part of the stakeholder committee to advise and support government. You have been disbanded, but we are saying to you, your voice for Grenada needs to be heard, in that we need to understand that we need to speak out that this, what is happening in this country, is not right, and we should never remain silent.
Thank you, political leader. I now hand you over to Honorable Clarice Modest Cohen to provide context around the communication that led to the confusion at the House of Representatives yesterday.
Thank you very much, Mr. PR, Brother Kitaka. Our political leader has done an excellent job in putting context to this whole thing, and what I have to add will be very short, but it will add a little bit to the context. In the members of the media and other persons, and I want to greet everyone who is listening to this program on the platform, and to join with our PR head, Brother Kitaka, and the political leader in singling out Jamaica as one of our sister member states, and sending strong messages of support and condolences to that country. We have seen some very, very to both sides concerning Parliament. And therefore, the leader of government business, Honorable Philip Telesford, was selected for the government side, and your humble servant here was selected for the opposition side. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it just didn't work. And we've had instances where dates were changed, or certain requests were made from the opposition side to facilitate better performance of the opposition in Parliament, and it was ignored. Generally, by and large, those requests were ignored, and we have continued to try to serve our nation as so it has not happened very well. And the amount of communications from our staff of Parliament would attest to that, and the level of the commitments. Let us not forget that all of this information, bills are formulated by the legal department, and they are all sent, all bills are sent to cabinet before they can go to Parliament, or before they put into a schedule, an order paper for a sitting of Parliament. And therefore, any changes have to be recommended by the cabinet as well. And so therefore, all of these communications and miscommunications and uncertainties have to be laid squarely on the tables, on the hands of the leadership of our country. And I would call it leadership, but that isn't an appropriate word for what is actually happening there. And so when we realized, and we in the opposition sat to look at the papers and, to discuss if there was anything to and so on, the last corrected list was already mentioned. I wouldn't go there again. That there was no documents, there were no, and there was still that corrected with a whole long set of a listing of items that would have supporting documents and would need that in order to be able to make a meaningful contribution. Don't forget, some Grenadians voted with the intention that they should have an opposition and not just 15 persons in cabinet. Some people felt in parliament, some people felt that they would get more transparency, that maybe they would get more work done, they would get more variety, more debates, whatever, and that it would augur well for Grenada and the people of Grenada as a whole. But what we're seeing now doesn't satisfy that kind of yearning that they wanted. We have never had that kind of authoritarian attitude in Parliament that we see now. Even when we were 15, we tried to accommodate. So Parliament being the highest institution in our country, the level of disorganization that is there, we cannot put it on the door of any one person. That comes right from the head, because all of the documents, the dates are set contrary to the schedule that was sent to us without consultation, but we agreed on it. We accepted it. And people made their plans based on that schedule. And now we find that persons are either having to miss Parliament or miss their schedule, their appointments, for personal appointments for whatever reasons, and nobody bothers. So therefore, when on Monday again, I proceeded to call the leader of government business to say, up to now we have not. And of course, we cannot debate meaningfully in any sitting. We did get the first one on the Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority. So we are prepared to go forward with that, recognizing that it is time sensitive, but we are not prepared to have any deliberations on those bills because we have no documents to pay. And so subsequently, there was conversation between the two of us. But that time, the horse had already bolted. There was nothing we could really do about it. So my contribution is that we had agreed, we have reneged on the agreement, and not we, let me be clear. The government side has reneged on the agreement that we should communicate. Dates, if there are change of dates, if we're deviating from the schedule, whatever. And if we had a problem, and we have kept our side by notifying. The clerk would attest to that I tried calling him over the weekend to say, we have a problem. So what we saw on Tuesday did not even have to occur because we communicated that there was a problem. And therefore, measures should have been taken to rectify that, and we should not have gone there. And so I would end here because it is very obvious that the necessary steps that could have and should have been taken to prevent this were not taken. So it came from the head. It didn't come from other people who are here being blamed now. It starts from above. Maybe some people have some blame to carry, but it doesn't start there. And I will end here. Thank you.
Thank you. That chaos was not an accident. It was a symbol, a reflection of the confusion, the poor planning, and disorganization that now defines this administration. Because, let's face it, when a government cannot manage a simple parliamentary sitting, how can we expect them to manage an economy effectively? When it cannot prepare for the day's agenda, how can it prepare for a nation's future? At this particular juncture, I want to invite the media to participate. Now, in the spirit of equity, we can do a first round of 2 questions per media personnel. And please indicate your name, the media house you represent, and then who your question is directed to, and then proceed with your question. You can raise your hand and I will identify you on the Zoom platform. Any questions? Technical team, any questions coming in? Well, I take it that we were crystal clear. Any comments from political leader? Anyone want to share any further
Excuse me,
comments
could I
on
could I
issues?
make
I think I see some
ex-
action from Peter
excuse me,
Richards.
excuse me, I was wondering whether I could make a could I ask a question?
Yes, of course. Proceed.
Okay, my name is Peter Richards. I'm from CMC. Hi, Doctor. I was wondering whether or not you would be in a position to give me a response of the party's position vis-a-vis the request by the United States to set up a radar equipment on Grenada.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning.
Morning, Doc.
Well, clearly, I am not privy to the details of the request that you're speaking about, and the party has not asked me to comment on any such matter. So clearly, I would not be commenting on a matter of this nature. This is a ability to respond. What could have happened if the government should be able to consult with its citizens before, which include a broad section of the society, before it responds. But it appears that nothing like that has been done. So I have no comment on a matter of this serious nature.
Any more questions from the media present on Zoom?
But could I follow up by asking, would would your party have any particular position on that request?
The request was not made to us. I don't know why we should have any response to this. It was not made to us. And it was a request of this nature was never made while we were in government. So the government has to deal with it accordingly. Okay?
Any more questions? Okay, I now hand over to Honorable Kate Lewis Peters to share a few words with us.
Thank you very much, PRO Kitaka. And let me say good morning to members of the media and those of you who are viewing via the various platforms. What transpired in Parliament yesterday is basically a clear reflection of the current state of governance in our country. There is a clear lack of coordination, there is absence of clarity, and we witness this at the highest decision-making body of our country. And as indicated prior by other members, it is a symptom of a much deeper problem. Clearly, this administration has become a hallmark of poor planning, poor dissemination of information, and lack of effective leadership. And we are calling on our people, the people of this country, to speak out. We are calling on them to understand the serious problem that we are faced with and to encourage the government to do better and provide better service for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing a question coming in on WhatsApp because apparently someone who wants to ask a question is having some internet issues. The question is in this form. Any information on Carriacou and PM burial relief programs? What is the situation with burial relief material in Carriacou? That's a question that's coming in via WhatsApp.
Okay, so just to add that in our view, what's happening in that area connects directly to the very point that we are making. Mismanagement, poor planning, things just can't seem to be rolling the way that it's supposed to be rolling, as the young people would say. And it is just a reflection of poor leadership and poor management. So more than 1 year after the passage of Hurricane Beryl, this administration has not even completed half of the number of houses that they're supposed to have completed by this time. So after more than a year, people are still under deplorable conditions. Some people still don't have roof over their heads. And we would have had so much resources available immediately after the passage of the hurricane. A total contrast to what happened after the passage of Hurricane Ivan. And, you know, this morning I reflected and I said to myself, I wish the people of Jamaica would have been in the position as the government of Grenada here, where 14 days after the passage of the hurricane, they had access to over $118 million. And so the question today, more than a year after, is why is it that the response has been so poor? Not because you don't have the financial resources. And any country experiencing a hurricane like this, they would tell you that the biggest wish is that they have the availability of financial resource to respond. This government had more than they could have desired at the point that they received it. And not just talking about the $118 million. Consider, they met a pregnant treasury, over $500 million. And on top of that, the government would have raised over $1 billion in revenue from the CBI program. So the question is, why after a year with so much financial resources that you cannot provide the accommodation for the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique? Why is it that you have more than 100 units that were left under the NNP administration, the apartments in Carriacou, and why is it that some of these units are still empty while people are wetting? Why is it that fishermen cannot go out to fish from then to now, more than a year, because they have not been able to receive the support? Why is it that farmers who lost everything more than a year after, they cannot get back to their farms? No access to farm roads. Why are all of these things happening? And it points to one root problem, not financial resources. The root problem is lack of leadership and lack of management. Total chaos. And if anyone is not seeing what is happening in this country, then they must be blind. I mean, love the party you love, no problem. But let us call out wrong when we see it. And that is the crux of the matter.
Thank you. Another question coming in, but I also saw some new people coming into the stream. Any questions from Zoom? I see the Grenadian Voice, WFM, Dr. Kellan Bob. Before I proceed to the other question that was sent to me via text.
Yes, I have a question if you're able to hear me.
Yes, hearing you loud and clear. Please proceed.
Yes, so this is a two-part question. And this is a question to the Leader of the Opposition. That has to do with the constitution of the committees. In Parliament yesterday, you articulated the view that there are some committees that needed to be constituted. The Speaker made a passing reference to the, I believe it's the Privileges Committee or the FROC Committee. I want you to speak to the implications of not having those committees properly constituted at the start of the parliamentary session, especially going into the budget that we have to be read in December. That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question has to do with the performance of the Speaker of the House of Parliament. Would the opposition be proposing perhaps a vote of no confidence in the Speaker? And what
of the House? And quite obviously, there would be reasons for doing so. And we would all agree that it is to help with the effective functioning of the Parliament. And one such committee is the Public Accounts Committee. Now, the Public Accounts Committee is one of the committees that's established to ensure that there is transparency, accountability, and promoting good governance in this country. Now, we went to Parliament yesterday, and we are ready to do the people's business. So if you look at the date of the opening of Parliament, I believe it was the 12th of September. Note well, the 12th of September. We are now at the end of October. The people's business is now on hold. And you would have thought that after such a long delay between the opening of Parliament and the start of the people's business, you would think that it would be treated as an urgency to have these committees established. And I couldn't believe it. The Speaker said, as a matter of fact, when I raised it, he said he agreed, he stated it before, that one of the things to be done in the first sitting of Parliament is to establish the committees. He repeated it. But for some reason, he did not have the power to make it happen. And this is frightening. And I asked the question before, and let us go back to the budget debate. When there was a schedule for the speakers, the chairman of our party did not get to speak. Not because it was not his turn to speak, but because the Prime Minister decided that he will speak when he was not scheduled to speak. And so the Speaker, quite obviously, would have been the choice of the Prime Minister. And I would never come here and blame the Speaker as it relates to what is happening. I believe, and I said it before, I'm going to repeat it again. I believe that the day in question, that the chairman of our party did not get to speak as scheduled, I am 100% convinced, except somebody proves otherwise, that the Speaker received directions and communication from the Prime Minister of this country, which ought not to happen. The Parliament is supposed to operate independently. And if there's a schedule, then it means that the Parliament must follow that schedule, irrespective of how any member of the House feels at any given time. So I cannot understand how a statement by the Prime Minister could cause the Speaker not to proceed to establish the committees as set out in the standing orders of the House. So that I say as it relates to the constitution of committees. As it relates to the performance of the Speaker, all I'll say to this is, I believe, from what I've observed and what I've experienced, the Speaker seems to get his directions from the Prime Minister of this country. And I would leave that right there. Whatever we see must be a reflection of directives from the leadership of this country.
A question coming in from the Grenadian Voice is asking, what was the reason given for the late receipt of the documents?
Okay, the reason given, and that would have been yesterday morning, because prior to that, there was no explanation. But the people who are more techno-savvy than I am, from my colleagues, they thought it was the size of, that was our own take. It was the size of the document that could not come through on just a regular email. But that was not picked up, or that was not taken up. I'll not say it was not picked up, it was not taken up as something important, because if those mails are usually sent out in the same manner to all of us, and other people, the people on the government side must have recognized that. As a matter of fact, when I spoke to the leader of government business, he said to me, let me look and see, because he had to verify. And after a while, he said he hadn't seen it, and he would try to track it down. That would have been on Monday. And later on in the afternoon on Monday, then we got another means that would allow us to download and all of that. But the first reason that was given, when the sitting was scheduled for the 24th of October, and when it was rescheduled from that date to the 28th, was the air condition. Yesterday, we had our sitting. People were sweating in Parliament. So which means that the air condition was not addressed. Whatever caused that change of mind, let us do it anyway. We don't know. And between that date of the change and the actual, how shall I say it, the sitting that was not a sitting took place yesterday. Several communications that just confused us and did not explain anything else. So I have to take what my techno-savvy colleagues would have said, the size of the document, and that is why we decided at first, let us have an amicable, reasonable dialogue on this to look for it. So the staff did show evidence that it was sent, but we also had evidence that it was not sent. None of us had it, that had received it, sorry. And also, later on, the leader of government business himself recognized that we did not receive it. So it was sent, as was clarified yesterday, but it was not received because of some technical problems. But the reason that was given before was the air condition. And so we still went on a sitting yesterday with the air condition problem. So we're asking ourselves, was that the real reason for the problem? But we don't know.
Can I just to add just a little bit to what Sister Clarice said. So all that she has said is true, but I just want to add and emphasize the point. Now, whether there was a technical issue or not, I want to emphasize the point that she made several efforts since last week Friday to indicate that there is a problem. And the only time that we got a resolution or close to a resolution was the day before. As a matter of fact, I saw that email the night before. I didn't even get to open it. The night before, a link that I want to explain was not just the documents for the sitting, but several documents that you have to go like a maze to find the documents for the next day. And there could have been a solution to this, because the agreed channel of communication that we have established, and this is critical, is that Sister Clarice and the leader of government business would be the 2-point persons that would speak as it relates to scheduling, as it relates to documents, as it relates to issues. So we never had an arrangement that says we are going to be communicating with the Parliament, although we did. But I want to emphasize the point that several efforts were made to have this resolved. And I have to conclude, we were treated like this. You don't really need to have these documents in time.
A question to our chairman and former prime minister. Lots of complaints about little economic activities, especially leading up to the Christmas season. Care to comment on this?
Well, it is clear that given what we've heard today and the dysfunctional nature of this present governing of the country by the present party, is a clear indication that it will affect almost every aspect of life in the country. So it's no wonder that you have a serious economic situation in facing the population. It is clear also that you have so many fundamental issues are not being addressed, and no one seems to know what is happening. It's in the government. And I'm not even sure that they are in fact communicating with one another. It seems like they have one boss who speaks for all of them, whether they like it or not. And it seems that they are comfortable with it because they're not clearly not saying anything. I thought they were individual representatives of constituencies, like we used to be, conduct our business in government during the period of the NNP in government. So I believe you can just any part of the country you go, you can hear one cry from every single citizen. from the persons at the lowest level in the society who may be unemployed and looking for opportunity. He's crying out, and that's a significant sector of the population. From the young people who are looking for opportunities coming out of school and looking for hope, they are seeing a sense of hopelessness. As the political leader mentioned, the farmers, the fishermen, even the teachers, who historically have been clearly, as a group, in a majority sense, have supported the National Democratic Congress. I don't think I'm going out of turn to say this. That's well known. I think they themselves are confused of what's happening. Our the president, who was a strong backer of the party during the election campaign, complaining bitterly about money not being paid to his teachers. And that's a clear indication. So you could go on and on and on and on. It's a fundamental problem confronting the country that cannot be hidden. And I think this is precisely what is happening at all levels in the society. And I feel it wherever I go. I'm being confronted by people asking me questions. And I said, well, I don't have answers for you because I'm not in government. And no one in government has ever consulted me on any issue in 3.5 years, after 23 years as Prime Minister and 40-something years as a parliamentary representative. No one. No one. I get calls from other governments in the region on issues concerning economic and other matters, knowing my basic qualification and so on. I get calls from them, but I get no call from anyone in this present government because they're all experts in their own right and they have the big boss to deal with.
Okay. Dr. Killenberg, I saw you indicated that you had a follow-up for former Prime Minister. Please proceed. Dr. Bob?
Yes, sorry, I was muted there. Yes, the follow-up question has to do with the geopolitical developments in the Caribbean at the moment with respect to the conflict between Venezuela and the United States. Now, I know that former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, as well as former Prime Ministers across the Caribbean, they have signed a letter affirming the Caribbean as a zone of peace. However, in that letter, your name was not listed. So the question I'm asking was two parts of that question. The first part is, were you consulted by Dr. Rowley to articulate your view on the issue? And secondly, as a former Prime Minister, what advice would you give to your colleagues, including the Prime Minister of Grenada and the other Prime Ministers of the Caribbean in navigating what some say is a very uncertain geopolitical time for the region?
No, certainly I was not consulted, and I could understand the rationale for this because the request from the United States came to the government and people of Grenada. So I think most likely they've been sensitive to that clear understanding. And I've already, Kellon, I don't think you were listening, I already answered to that second point that you raised. No request came to us, no one consulted us, no one asked us, no one showed us a document that they have been that have come to the people of Grenada. So we have absolutely cannot comment on a sensitive nature item of this nature. I would not comment on. I have enough experience in government to understand that you be very careful when you're dealing with a matter of this nature. And we have not been provided with any information, basically. So we are just what I said earlier on. I'm repeating myself again.
No, I'm aware of that, but I'm speaking to the letter that Dr. Keith Rowley penned in Trinidad and Tobago as a former Prime Minister. Former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas signed on to that letter. Yes. You didn't. I was wondering if Dr. Rowley
I was not consulted. I said I knew nothing about the letter.
Okay.
No one called me on it, and I said I could understand why. Because of being chairman of the New National Party and being the opposition party, and a request coming to the government and knowing that maybe we will be consulted on that specifically. So I was not asked, and I certainly understand why.
Thank you.
Another question. What recourse does the opposition have as an option for what appears to be the constant violations of the rules and operations of the Parliament?
Well, this is our first step, I would say, to bring to the public's attention what has been happening, and we chronologically outlined several things that have happened over the years. I mean, we don't have the time. It probably would take us an entire day to list everything that concerns us about how we've been operating, not just in the parliament, but nationally. But we believe this morning that we take this first step of action to bring to the attention of the public what has been happening. And as a team, we are going to consult further. We are going to discuss further as to what our next step would be. We would not want to outline this here this morning.
Okay, as we approach it, sorry.
The question is about Parliament.
Mic is on. Put the mic on.
The question was about Parliament. What are we going to do? I feel the question is deeper than just about Parliament. I think the political leader and Sister Clarice in our presentation, their presentation, in fact, pointed to this. This is what is happening in the Parliament is a symptom of what is happening in the country as a whole. So one has to ask, I believe what the opposition is facing, what will they do about a government which is dysfunctional and have the mass of the people already concerned about what is happening in the country by the governing party? And I think this is precisely what maybe the political leader was alluding to when she pointed out further consultation will be held, a wide cross-section of the population, and the government has to face the consequences of its dysfunctional governance of the country at all levels in the society and its impact on the lives of all citizens of this country. And I think that's precisely where we're heading.
Okay. As we're about to wrap up, one final question coming in. Well, we've seen elections all over. Jamaica just had elections. St. Vincent has one coming up. Grenada is constitutionally due in 2027. So a question is coming in here. Is the NNP ready for a next general election and to contest successfully?
You go on, I would answer.
Right. So just to respond, the NNP is absolutely ready, and we are doing all that we can to be even more ready as it relates to the next general elections. We are not preparing for election in 2027. We are preparing for whenever the elections are called, and we are doing what we have to do internally and ensuring that we put all systems in place in terms of readiness for the next general election whenever it is called.
I have constantly been advising all potential candidates and caretakers and everyone interested in participating directly in the next general election that assume the election is tomorrow. That is precisely when in a 5-year stint of parliamentary system that we operate. When you reach 3.5 years, basically the Prime Minister can call it any day. So just assume that you're working as if it is next week or tomorrow or whatever. And therefore, if you do that, then no matter when it's called, you are absolutely on top of your game. I think that's...
Okay. One final one to sneak in before we wrap up. There are conversations happening around the massive uptick in voter registration. Concerns around whether some of these people are not from Grenada, CBI applications, CBI citizens. Is the opposition aware of this, and can this be an avenue for voter irregularities in the upcoming elections?
Well, just to say, we have highlighted several concerns over the past years of what we have observed happening. And we have registered those concerns, not just publicly, but we have spoken to the supervisor of elections about some of the concerns that we have. And we are taking the legal approach as it relates to some of those things we've observed. And we are going to do what we have to do as an organization as it relates to those concerns.
Yes. Document you just say something.
Yeah, just
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But just to know, it's a normal thing in any election if you're going to be participating in an election, you have to canvass the voters list. So every potential person who is looking at getting involved directly in a general election must, like all caretakers and the party, must treat the voters list as a key aspect of the work. And therefore, every voter on that list must be known by the party and its structure. And therefore, anyone who is not legally having the right to vote on election day would have to be, we have to make the strong legal and other recommendation that they be removed from the list. And that's our work. We have to do this. We can't leave that work to anybody else. And that's the work of the new National Party going forward.
What I have to say is not directly related to this. I know the question came about the economy of Grenada, and it was very competently answered by Dr. Richard. But I just want to raise one concern, because usually we look at the macroeconomics, the big companies and so on. But the small communities are really hurting. And normally around this time, we would have a number of gangs going out doing the bushing with the expectation, you know, they're getting something for Christmas. And we don't see that kind of move. The few people who went out are the same few who went out the last time. It's the same people who are repeatedly getting a fortnight. And so the money, although it's spinning around a little bit as though it's spinning in mud, it's just a few people who are still getting it. And I'm very troubled about what will happen to families going into the Christmas season, because their expectations, especially when you have children, something a little more economic activity has to happen. And this government's attitude towards the debushing and small jobs in communities and bringing in people from other parishes to do little jobs in communities that people in the area can do. This is really hurting the small economies in Grenada, and I really just wanted, I couldn't live without saying that. We need to see something more that would create more economic activities in the small communities.
Thank you very much. Any final closing comments from your political leader, anyone on the panel, before we close off for today?
I just wanted to, of course, put this press conference in context. The fact that we have a very comprehensive analysis of what's happening in the country and in the parliament of the country, I think must be lauded in many respects. This morning, I think the NNP has made itself proud by what we have, in fact, brought to the attention of the public. And I think it's incumbent upon our people to understand what is taking place in the country as a whole and to get involved in a serious way in ensuring and protecting our democracy and protecting the fact that we have come a long way from where we were years ago. We've built a lot, and therefore we expect to continue to push forward, not to go backwards. And I think that to me is important. I also want to take this opportunity, as was done by other presenters here today, to of course, identify with the pain and the suffering of the people of Jamaica at this time. I have been in touch with several persons in the country and in recent days, and I know how difficult it is, because we know, we've passed through this before. I myself personally had experience and watching the Prime Minister's residence demolished in front of my eyes. So I know that fear and that problem that was created, and I certainly want to just say that all Grenadians, in whatever capacity whatever we can do as a country, like we did receive from every single country support in our ways. We did receive support, and not financial, yes, but also in terms of the moral support for our recovery. And I think we owe it to ourselves and to our brothers in Jamaica to do precisely that. I just wanted to make that as a final comment this morning and to say that we proceed.
No, I didn't want to say, sorry, okay. I didn't want to say anything, but I had an internal smile when our chairman mentioned watching the Prime Minister's residence. And now we have a different concept of what a Prime Minister's residence is. So I thought, just a laugh, nothing else.
Yes, I too want to associate myself with expressing empathy to the people and government of Jamaica. What they are going through right now, we know it is tough. We have experienced it ourselves, and so we stand ready as a team of the New National Party to provide support in any way possible. As it relates to the focus for this morning, we have outlined clearly the breakdown of leadership in our country, and though the focus today was on Parliament, we could clearly see that it is reflected throughout the different sectors of our economy. And as a result of that, we have seen real consequences, and I must mention the young people of our country, the hope, the frustration, the hopelessness and frustration that they are faced with. We know it is quite tough for them, but I just want to remind them that the NNP stands ready to restore hope, to restore all the programs and projects that once gave them purpose, once give them pride and dignity. We are ready, and we just asking them to work with us, because together we will rescue this country. Thank you.
So this morning I want to close by stating that we have clearly outlined what we consider to be a situation of leadership crisis in this country. Poor governance, poor accountability, lack of leadership. And so for us, we believe that the alternative to this is a team of persons who genuinely care about Grenada, people who are ready to get the work done, to engage all civil society, all stakeholders, involve them in the governance of the country. And that is what the New National Party's team is prepared to do. And we are prepared, as I said before, to work towards building a Grenada for all. We seriously object to the notion of them and us, as has been advocated by this administration over and over again. We want a Grenada where every Grenadian feel that they have a stake in national development, where every Grenadian feel that they are part of national development. And this morning, we are saying to the nation, we are very concerned. Too many persons in this country are also concerned about what is happening, and we are calling on this government to immediately change course. We are saying to this government, we would not sit by and just observe and accept the disrespect that is being meted out on elected members of parliament, and we are not going to look on at the level of lack of leadership and level of mismanagement that is taking place in this country. We love our country, and we believe we have a responsibility to continue to hold this government accountable and to do what is best, what is right for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Thank you.
Thank you very much, team. Grenadians are crying out for direction, for discipline, and for delivery. And while the government continues to drift, the New National Party stands anchored, firm in our conviction, serious in our purpose, and ready to serve. We will not remain silent while our nation slides deeper into mismanagement and despair. We are here to speak truth, to defend the people's dignity, and to demand accountability. Our message is clear. Grenada deserves better. So, The NNP will continue to show up in Parliament, in the communities, and wherever leadership is needed, because Grenada deserves nothing less than serious leadership in serious times. Before we close, just want to remind you, this afternoon we have our NNP public meeting in St. Patrick West at 6:30 p.m. Thank you to all the viewers, the media, and every Grenadian who listened. Please share the messages, and we look forward to engaging you sometime again soon in the future. Thank you very much.